Hey guys, it's Trek, and I recently discovered that there's an interesting community of Nerfers on Instagram. A few people who are like YouTubers have Instagram, such as myself and others, but there are other people who focus predominantly on Instagram and then make and manufacture their mods in other places. And this is one such Nerfer named Al, or AlTheGeek, and he's on Etsy, and he wanted me to make a video on some of his work. So this is kind of like half peer review, half just like, let's take a look at somebody else's awesome modification on the channel, and that's gone over well in the past, so I think that it should be really fun. If that wind keeps up, I will be Draxical before this review is over. Oh my gosh. So all that terrible weather that you guys are having up north is down here, but not quite as bad. So it isn't wet yet, it's just freezing, which is something that I am wholly unprepared for. So this is the parcel that I received from Al the Nerf Geek, and it's really an excellent showcase of his craftsmanship, what he's utilizing for some of his stuff, and then kind of like how he's doing all of his integrations and the like. I really love the dry brushing. I think that that's sweet. It's so refreshing to see somebody else who grinds off the majority of the logos on a blaster. A lot of people don't do that, and I think that it's really lazy. But it looks like he's doing a fine job of knocking off most of the logos' names and work on here. The pirate skull over this N-Strike logo is such an innovative and cool way to solve that problem. That's awesome. I'm really digging the paint that he's using. I can tell by feel, and then of course he's also told me a little bit about the blaster that he used the same black vinyl dye that I usually use, but then he used a blue vinyl dye over that instead of doing something kind of wonky with it. And then it looks like Tamiya model paints are his detailing paint of choice. I think that that's really cool. I'm super duper digging the Masterkey. I did something with a Masterkey a long time ago. I think I called it the Oblivion Rifle, and it looks like this is a very similar version, although it doesn't seem to be in permanent slam fire. The matching Raider stock, it's a Super Soaker stock in Raider style, is an awesome little include. I really love the flash hider on top of the long strike barrel. It disguises that overall aesthetic, and it's just a really well done blaster. Now there is of course no orange on this, but he knew that I would be very responsible and safe with it. So as far as the peer review goes, I'm gonna start with Al's work. Let's oh man, it keeps coming. There's more stuff. Tin clip painted to match is awesome. I will load that up in just a second. And then it appears as though there is a note in here, which I will get to in just a second. Oh, why is the weather not cooperating? Hashtag YouTube problems. So, while I load, we'll talk aesthetics. This is, of course, just a very durable paint job. Using vinyl dye gives you that kind of result. The fact that everything matches is awesome. The lack of orange is dangerous for certain clients, but for the prop community that he serves mostly through his Etsy store, I totally get it. I think that the blaster looks great. Some of the integration choices are a little bit heavy-handed, and I'll talk about that in a second. Like, the epoxy is smooth in very many places, but it's a permanent fixture here to the strife. Now, if you want a Masterkey strife and you don't want it to go anywhere, that is awesome, but it's also a very easy thing to do so that it is, in fact, removable. I really like that you can still select fire the rough cut. I think that that's very cool. Now, this has been internally modified by another Instagram user called Dan the Nerf Man, who did a Rhino rewire, although I believe it's still working on an alkaline chemistry. But with the jam door, or the battery door, readily accessible, you could do basically whatever you wanted with the battery chemistry. You could throw trust fires in there for a quick boost, or some IMRs if you really wanted that lithium chemistry. So the overall integration seems solid. This looks a little bit like a liquid epoxy, or possibly feels kind of like hot glue, so that could be a little bit tougher, but the epoxy putty on the joint here, whatever's holding on the long strike barrel, and then this back end is super duper smooth, so I'm very happy with that. His use of optics is really cool, and he says that they're not very expensive the way that he does them, and I think that that's really neat that he finds these airsoft parts and then repurposes them, especially since it's dry brush to match and the red dot is on there. It's actually really cool. I like this red dot as opposed to the NERF red dot, because even though it doesn't look necessarily nerfy, it is very, very cool. Now there's a slight asymmetry to the blaster. To solve that, it helps to take apart these blasters so that you can line them up half to half, but it looks like he might not have done that. The mechanical fastening here though means that it's never going anywhere. So we will fire the blaster. Pretty standard strife performance for alkalines, and then the rough cut is of course primed and fired from down here, and the rough cut has not been modified. The way that it's been painted, there's a little bit of stick there, not a big deal, but just a very, very cool, fully fledged primary. You can buy stuff like this from his Etsy page, which I think is a fine showcasing of his painting ability. And then I'm sure that if you wanted Dan the Nerf Man to do some work for you in the strife, that would also be possible. It feels like everything has been redone completely. He said that he did a full rewire. I'm not entirely sure if this is a cherry switch. It feels very much like the stock switch, so maybe don't throw IMRs in something like this necessarily, but I love the blaster. I think that the way that the paints play off one another is excellent. I think that the overall sturdiness of this integration is going nowhere. The Jolly Roger down here is just incredible. It's a very fine touch, and the overall just aesthetic of it with the silver dry brushing on top makes it look like a very worn post-apocalyptic blaster. And if there's anything that I'm going to take from this, it's the PVC flash hider here is too cool for school. Like, really changes the overall look of the blaster. The sharp angle here gives it a very aggressive sci-fi military feel, and I might have to start tinkering with more airsoft stuff myself. I did it once upon a time for a TACVIN commission where I did a red dot sight, or a red dot laser pointer, I guess. But the red dot sight on here is really, really cool. I really like the kind of holographic optics. So overall, a phenomenal mod. Thank you so much to AlTheGeek for sending this over so that we could share it with everybody on my YouTube channel. I will put a link, of course, to his Instagram and his Etsy page down below so that you can check out more stuff by him, because if this is any indication, his future in this hobby is very, very bright. Just some really cool aesthetic work coming out of his shop. I like the utilization of, I think, 4 different blasters in this, 5 if you count the Demolisher, so that is certainly not unnoticed either. Just really, really cool stuff. Thanks for watching, guys. Since this is the last video of the month, I really want to give a huge public thumbs up and thank you to Craig and Simon on Patreon. They are my 2 largest patrons, and what they're doing is helping me just an awful lot, trying to kind of like set up a workshop, figure out my living situation and all sorts of stuff, so that just helps more than you can possibly know, and I really appreciate it. So I wanted to thank Craig and Simon out loud, personally, in front of all of my subscribers and everything. So huge thumbs up. Thank you very much to you guys, and if you'd like to be one of my Patreon supporters at any level, the link is in the description box below. Thanks for watching.